Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So the reason that I'm making this video is because I know there are a lot of you out there who are in an environment where people are making you feel like you're not enough because of X, Y, Z. And this happens at pretty much every stage of your life. So if you're a little kid, you're not enough because you don't get good grades, right? Or if you go to you're about to graduate high school, oh my gosh, you're not enough because you didn't go to a good college. And then what happens is that, oh, once you graduate college, you're not enough because you didn't get a good job. Oh, you're not enough because you didn't, once you graduate college and found a good job, you didn't buy a home, right? So there's this thing in society that at every stage of your life, unless you're a delusional narcissist, which I think that's how people cope nowadays from all the expectations, unrealistic expectations that society places on the average person, you'll probably experience a mental breakdown in your life because you're expected to do things that are not actually even possible just because A, the game is rigged against you, and B, all the things that you're expected to do, there's not enough hours in the day to actually do it, right? And so what happens is that um, you know, the bar is actually quite low. And one of the reasons why people get actually majorly depressed is because they think there's something wrong with them for not being able to meet the impossible expectations of society. And so what they do is essentially they fake it and hope to make it, but they never do. And the funny thing is the system actually has deep statistics about what's going on in society. So for example, let's say like you owe money to the IRS and you declare bankruptcy. The IRS has actual like very detailed statistics about like based on your zip code, what's the medium income in your area to determine if you're blind. Like they have like the system has very detailed statistics about people and their lives. But the funny thing is, even though the system knows those very little itty gritty details about people's lives, it kind of pushes out the opposite message that you're abnormal for experiencing what most other people are experiencing. And so my point is that the bar is low and most people suffer in silence. Why do most people suffer in silence? Because they're fed this delusion that everybody else has it better than them because everybody else is able to make, you know, able to meet the unrealistic expectations of society, except for me. I just can't meet them. So there must be something wrong with me. And so what happens is that people become quite depressed. That essentially they're not a square peg, right? They're not a square peg in a circular hole, like, or like they can't fit, and they don't understand why. I'm like, dude, you're a square peg, and you're trying to fit into a circular hole, and they think there's something wrong with them in that situation, rather than hey, go ahead and just find a square hole, right? You're a square peg, find a square hole. But most people don't do that. Now, let me explain why the bar is low, right? So you ever look at people at their social media and they always look like they're happy, they're traveling places and they're going to parties and everything is great. Yet, if you look at just do a Google search on statistics, most people live paycheck to paycheck, but you couldn't even tell that. Like every time I go outside my house, everybody looks like they're doing awesome. Everything's fine. You ask people how are you, they're always like 99% saying, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you." But although I notice that nowadays people don't tend to answer that as much as they did when I was a kid. Like this is when I was a kid, when people ask how are you and you say like I'm okay, especially the adults when I dealt with those kids, they act like I was like the weirdest person for just actually like sharing my feelings. But I think because most people have it so bad these days, they're actually willing, like more likely to say I'm not fine compared to back then. Because back then it was easier to be delusional. But back to my point, the bar is low. So, you might think, oh, there's something wrong with me because I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And now I know I certainly live like this. And then I found out like, hey, everyone else is living like paycheck to paycheck, but why didn't they tell me? Maybe we could have combined and pulled our money for the greater good so we can, get out of a hole. But instead of doing that, most people want to like, fight over scraps and act like they're better than me, right? I think that was like the most heartbreaking thing to figure out, to find out that the majority of people are essentially fighting for scraps. You ever work retail? You'll figure that out if you work retail for like 2 weeks. Like okay, random tangent. I actually thought that the lower the wage, it would just be like Office Space where you work that construction job at the end and you just have to zone out. But really, the lower the wage, the more for some reason people use that excuse to treat people terribly. Like it's really bizarre. But I didn't know that. And so when I worked a retail job for like 2 weeks, I was like, what is this? This is like some sort of weird dystopia, right? Dystopian work environment. Okay. Anyways, back to my point. If you feel like, oh man, something's wrong with me because I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe they can fake it with Instagram, but and they're playing game on you, but they're living paycheck to paycheck too. Now, let's say that you're actually doing pretty well. You got good credit, good money, and then but you're being pressured to buy a home, but it just doesn't feel right because maybe you're paying a little bit too much. Hey, maybe most people look good in their Instagram because they're showing off how they bought their new home, but when they're competing with the Joneses, they're gonna look like they're better than you, but deep down inside they regret buying. Like just look it up in Google. Google, type in Google how many people regret buying their home in 2023. It actually says more than 90%. So again, the bar is low. Like, if you think that your life sucks, it probably does, but most other people's life sucks too. So, no need to think that you're all alone in this. Next one. You ever like deal with those people where it's like people are arguing you about like, oh my gosh, what's the best way to pay a mortgage? And then you kind of find out that nobody pays off a 30-year mortgage in 30 years by doing it the default way. And it's like, okay, like why are we getting into arguments about this? Like if you want to do it your way, like you do your way. If I'll do my way, do my way. But then they're always like trying to like, oh my gosh, I have to be right, blah 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 blah. And it's like, all right, whatever, like you're right. But let's actually see where the bar is. Most people don't even pay off a 30-year mortgage in 30 years. That's mostly because they resell they sell their home or refinance every 5 to 7 years. So that 30-year mortgage becomes like a 40-year, 45-year, or they just die with the loan. So they essentially, instead of being an actual homeowner, they rent it from the bank. Next one. Now, here's the thing. I think Gen Z is like the first group in society that was part of that social media game since their birth, right? And if you ever devote your life to social media and not actually devote your life to, building a community, being part of something, be part of something real, you're, it's like fast food, right? That's what social media is. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it once in a while, go ahead and do it, but you're not going to really get anything out of it. You have to, you know, the satisfaction in life comes from the fact that you led a life and the people that were around you were important to you, and you led a life that was worth living because you spent uh, a lifetime cultivating, families, communities, and the problem with nowadays is that people just think about their own individual selves and their individual achievements, and that's only just going to lead to depression, right? This is why countries like Japan and South Korea and even the United States, which for family, you get a snapshot of every one of those countries like 50 years ago, right? Those are family-oriented societies. And then once those societies went off the rail, where it was about extreme individualized achievement and goals, it's not a coincidence that depression, exponentially skyrocketed. And the more that with each generation that passes that focuses on individual achievement, the more people will get depressed. And so, folks, the bar is low. Like very few people are happy, very few people are making it. And so if you're just a person who has maybe like $400 in savings for an emergency, you're better off than most of the population. But sometimes it may not feel that way because, the majority of the people are playing game on you. They focus more on trying to look rich than being rich. But most people just suffer in silence. And the most surprising thing to me, especially when I was broke, was I was just like, I must be the only one suffering this. And then I would tell other people, like, I'm so broke, please help me. And they like laugh at, make fun of me. And it turns out the person laughing and making fun of me was also broke. I was like, why do that to me, right? Why don't we work together for a greater outcome? And that's the other thing too, is sometimes you got to be careful with your guard because, a lot of people out there, they'd rather steal $1 from you than make $1 million with you. Kind of sad, right? All right, so this is Creating Atlanta Mentorship, just a commentary about the state of society. And this is kind of related to leadership too, because I think in a society with strong leadership, none of this nonsense would ever happen that I'm talking about, right? We wouldn't have to play game with each other so that we could, keep up with the Joneses or look like we're better than other people, even though we're not, right? So as always, at the end of the video, I always make a plug for the group. So if you're interested in joining our mentorship group, go ahead and click the Google form link below, fill out your information, click submit, and then we'll give you a contact through Zoom. All right, so have a great day, everybody. We will speak next time.